In the Pits is sponsored by Hustletown Paintball. Hustletown is a brand by Jason Tinsley of Houston that is all about representing Houston paintball and highlighting its local talent. Head to hustletownpaintball.net to browse their selection of casual wear and use code PIT10 for 10% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Compete. Compete is a Texas-based brand by Jell Stewart of professional team AC Diesel that provides custom jerseys, pants, headbands, straps, tech shirts, and any other soft goods to help individuals and teams compete at the highest level. Support Texas Paintball and message Compete on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits Podcast for 10% off your entire order. In the Pits is sponsored by FUAthletics, created with a purpose and focused on building a better you. We are a brand that matters in your workout, and every purchase gives back to cancer research. Go to thefuathletics.com and use code INTHEPITS25 for 25% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Get Dat Shot. Get Dat Shot now offers first-in-line photo and video editing, 20% off Get Dat Shot merch, and 20% off prints to all teams that wear the Get Dat Shot logo on their jersey. Message GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram to become a Get Dat Shot program team. In the Pits is partnered with Paintball Kumite. Paintball Kumite is a program designed by Colt Roberts of professional team San Antonio X Factor to take paintball players of all ages, experience levels, and skill groups and mold them into champions. The program breaks the game down into small, easy-to-learn sessions designed to help you master the fundamentals so that you can elevate your game. Newcomers to the program get a free 1-hour introductory class when mentioning In the Pits. To sign up for a class, message @PaintballKumite on Instagram. Welcome everyone to episode 42 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and a new special guest. I'm Christian Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans, and this episode we are going in the pits with Andrew Howe, head pro ref for the NXL, and also the head ref for USXBL, Bunkerfest, and I'm sure a lot of other leagues as well. Andrew, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, man. How are you?
Doing great. Feels good to get you on. I know that you're very involved in paintball as a whole, just across the entire U.S., so I would love to hear more of your story and all of the knowledge that you've picked up over the years.
For sure. Hopefully we can get a good little thing going here. I feel like I just saw you, so and we chatted a little bit, so this will be good.
Oh yeah, we saw each other the last 2 weekends in a row now. So so for those listening that maybe don't know so much about you, how long have you been involved in the tournament paintball scene?
I started in tournament paintball around 2000 into 2001.
Gotcha.
Started playing paintball around 99 in the woods and stuff, and then tournament paintball around 2000, 2001.
Nice. So you've definitely been in way longer than I have. So as a player, what are some teams that you've played for?
So I'm from the Rochester, New York area. I've played for a lot of local teams that no one would really know, but some of the guys that I've played for Lockout, Sonic Rage, Shockwave, Titman Effect, Rhythm, kind of that camp of guys, if anyone knows those names.
Oh yeah,
big from like 2004 to 2009. Some of those in those teams there. So
for sure, some big names, older names.
Older names for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. So what was it that got you into tournament paintball?
I was lucky enough to have an area where we had a pro team in Lockout. Pro Paintball was a store around here that was making free flow autocockers and stuff like that. So you got to see the trophies and things like that when you would go pick up a gun at the store, and really lit up my eyes and be like, oh wow, these are this is a legit thing. I want to go do that. So we had a couple fields that were downtown in the Rochester area where we could go play on the weekends. That was more speedballish, if you will. carpeted, old post offices and stuff like that with spool fields. So got me into that. I was pretty young. I was like 14 or 15 at that time. And then that was kind of when paintball was starting to make that transition out of the woods and into a more speed game. And teams were looking to pick up younger guys. So I got lucky as like a 15 or 16-year-old to playing paintball for almost nothing, or really, really cheap on the weekends. So
cool. So
that got me started. That got me started, and I dove in pretty hard. I played baseball, a couple other sports in high school too. So once I really dove in, that was my sport. That was it. So
were you one of those kids that was like, "Hey kid, are you fast? You want to play the snake one for us? You can come play for our team." Are you one of those?
It wasn't like by the looks of me, you would say that, but by any means, but that's where I ended up. Yeah, for sure. Very aggressive. And I think that's how I got like into a couple spots on teams, was just being that aggressive one and bunkering people out and stuff back then. So
it's funny that the proliferation of that stereotype kind of continues to this day. It's just a whole lot of the, hey, hey kid, you want to come play the snake? And then it seems like a lot of people nowadays kind of get their start playing the aggressive ones, just like running down, bunkering the person in front of them, and then letting everybody else behind them clean it up.
For sure. Definitely. So, I think that, and sometimes I think that's a detriment for some kids. They don't really need to be the snake one. Maybe they're really, really smart and they should be playing a 2 and then into the snake. But sometimes you're just looking for athleticism a lot of the time. So
for sure. I mean, there are a few players out there that the athleticism really does get them far. So, I mean, if you have those talents, might as well use them, right?
Yeah, especially in today's game, that's a huge attribute. You almost need to have. There's still some big guys out there that are making it happen for sure, but they're top 10 in their gun battling or in their mental game. So
for sure. I mean, I feel like every team needs at least one of those guys that can just send it. Just you have to have that tool in your tool bag, otherwise, it gets real easy to kind of find yourself in a hole and not having that avenue to change it up and get yourself back into games.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams are looking for the aggressive guy because it's hard to teach aggressiveness, but yeah. Holding the guy back is a little bit easier than telling him, "Hey, you got to go in this situation," but works out in a lot of other areas.
Oh yeah. So as far as your involvement in tournaments, like what history do you have? Did you used to play at a high division, or how long were you a tournament player?
Yeah, so I played like high end, probably D2, high end D2 ish leagues, and then they had like a D3 and a D4 division as well, up until about 2012. And then I moved from Rochester to Denver. When I did that, I played with a couple of buddies that had moved out there with me, just some random D3 stuff. But that's when I got into reffing, mostly. It was around that time, 2014, 2015, when the NXL started.
Okay, cool. So you've actually had quite a long time as a player before actually getting into reffing, but since like 2014, 2015, have you pretty much only been a ref, or have you still gotten out to go play tournaments every now and then?
Yeah, I mean, randomly and very few and far between. Reffing takes up a bunch of my time as far as that goes, and work. But yeah, I would love to pick it up more. We're actually planning on playing with a bunch of refs for the Pittsburgh Open, or what was the ICC, if you will. I remember how that all went down, but yeah, so a bunch of old friends and old buddies. We're gonna pick up the guns this year, start playing a little bit more. Should be good. Maybe Ion, maybe a couple like different scenario stuff. Nothing too crazy. The mechanical stuff is what me right now,
Yeah, mechanical definitely seems to be like the new wave. That and the Young Guns division, but
yeah,
sure. So go ahead.
That's true. I think that's very true, and I think that's a good thing to get the younger guys in. It's just how do we how do we set that hook on those young guys is the question, or the obstacle, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a question that paintball's been trying to answer for a while now.
Yeah.
I thought the answer was hopefully going to come through the NCPA, the college division, but I don't know, just because of COVID, everything kind of died off there, and hopefully it'll start, coming back. But seems like it's going to take a while to build up that player base again.
Yeah, I think you played in that, didn't you? Didn't you, Christian? Is that where you came from? Yeah, a lot. It was big in this area too, in upstate New York, and I know it was big in the South, and that's where a lot of referees came from too. There was guys that played in those divisions, and then they would want to ref an NXL or a PSP back in the day, and that's how they got into it. But that got a lot of young guys because it was those programs, those college programs had money, and they could put it into these clubs and stuff like that. So it was a great league, great league.
Sure.
I'm sure it was fun to play. Like those prizes were cool, and you got to go to cool places.
Oh yeah, it was.
I was 15-4 for a while too, wasn't it? Like people were shredding each other up for a bit, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't join until I joined right at the tail end of 12-2. So like 2015, 2015 I joined, and then in 2016 it became 10-5, I think, 2016 or 2017.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But yeah. NCPA was definitely big in Texas. A lot of colleges had multiple lines. I remember the very first NCPA event that I went to, I want to say had like 16 or 17 lines entered from like 7 different colleges. And it was always big. Like the Texas Longhorns, which is who I played for, had 3 lines. I want to say like there were some colleges like Texas A&M and North Texas that it wouldn't be too uncommon for them to bring like 5 lines to an event. It was unreal how many players that they were pulling in.
Yeah, you're looking at, a van full of dudes, if not a bus. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So this next question is brought to us by Hustletown Paintball. Head to hustletownpaintball.com and use code PIT10 for 10% off of your order. So throughout your time in the tournament paintball scene, what are some things that you've noticed that have changed, either for better or for worse?
Media, for sure. I think media is a big thing, especially now, as over the last few years with the shorts and the TikToks that are out there. I think we've gotten a lot of eyes on paintball that would have never seen it or forgot about it or just coming back to them, however that algorithm hit them. But I think that's the one big thing that I think right now, and I think it's for the better. I don't see a ton of bad stuff. Of course, a lot of people like to be that keyboard warrior, and that's just sometimes a lack of knowledge on their part, or they're just bored. Who knows? But that's one major thing that I see, and I think it scares some refs away from it. To be honest, if we're talking reffing, I just know some guys that just don't want to be on camera and don't want or are afraid of that kind of thing. So, or have gotten away from it because it was just too much. But that's the one thing I've noticed for sure. That's blatant. There's just more media out there, but you get those younger players, and it's cool for those guys to be able to go play a match, and in minutes their match is on something they can go watch and see the mistakes or learn from stuff. So I think it's for the better, but I could see it getting reckless.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when I first started, there was like, hey, if you had photographer at your event, it was because you had like a personal connection with someone who was already doing photography, and they just happened to like be a friend of someone on the team. And yeah, it was that way for a while. And now it's like, geez, the sideline's just absolutely crowded, and it seems like it's a race to whoever can get the reel up first of someone bunkering someone, or someone, doing, having a big point, or even just reloading now.
Yeah, anything, right? Anything that gets the cool view. Yeah, a lot of those paintball videos that I saw like in the shorts and stuff for a while were reloading videos or people dropping paint or, people busting their gun or something like that. The funny stuff, if you will, but
Yeah. And
good stuff. There's some good stuff out there though. I'll give those guys credit. The divisional stuff that they catch is amazing. Like some of that stuff is what people don't see, or haven't seen, because most of the pro stuff you see, pretty regularly, but some of that divisional stuff is amazing. I love it.
I love that. So Verbal Brian Wolf, he just posted a video a couple hours ago. It was a Bunkerfest montage of everybody that he caught getting bunkered on camera. And I thought it was great. Just seeing run throughs over and over again. A lot of it through the car wash, which the field was definitely conducive to people running through the car wash to go and bunker someone. So there's plenty of content there.
That's what they wanted. That's what they got,
Chris knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Verbal does some good stuff too. He's a good dude. He's at a lot of events, and he's devoted, especially in the, in your area, in the Texas area, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's not just going to events. Like, he's regularly at Paintball Fit Nightball, which is just, Friday night, just weekend practice. He's there pretty much every weekend, just kind of filming whatever he wants, and he'll post some really great highlights. There's so much stuff just from his Nightball stuff, which those points are just hopper ball, and the amount of things that he's able to get on that are just, it's really cool how talented that Verbal is, and how quickly he's kind of risen to the top in terms of the media game.
I agree. And those, he's just so smart for going out to those, because it's hopper ball, man. You got to make some crazy stuff happen, like you said. I went there, I did a clinic, and there just happened to be Nightball going on that night. And, there was some crazy stuff going on, but it's so much fun. I mean, you play hopper ball, it's unlimited for, I can't remember the price on it, but it's unlimited until 9 o'clock, or like dusk till 9 o'clock or something like that in the summer, 10 o'clock or something. You can get a ton of points in doing that. Those games are quick because it's just hopper ball. Oh, yeah. You can learn a lot of stuff, or just practice one thing if you wanted to, Maybe you just want to go play left-handed. Just go play left-handed hopper ball.
Yep. It's a very, very cool thing that Paintball Fit has going for them. And they get a ton of time behind the gun, that's for sure.
Definitely. You can tell those guys in that area, and those teams in that area are very technically sound. Or if you'll see some players, and in months you'll see them grow. It's crazy.
All right. So you are obviously most known for being the head referee on the NXL Pro field. You're also the head ref for many leagues around the U.S., including most recently Bunkerfest and USXBL here in Texas. So how did you get your start in paintball reffing?
So when I moved from Rochester to Denver, actually, let's back up. So the last league that I played in was the USPA, and that league had, I think, 8 or 9 of the pro refs on our field for that Division 2 or semi-pro league, whatever it was, Division 3, whatever it was. And so I knew a lot of those guys, and I'd coached some of them, and I'd played with some of them too. So I knew a bunch of the dudes that were on that PSP Pro field before it made the NXL switch. And so they had kind of whispered in my ear that if, they wanted me to come ref with them before, but I was a player and I just had a job and stuff, and I didn't really want to. When I moved to Denver, I told CJ, who was the head at the time, that I'd be interested if there was ever an opening. So when the NXL became a thing, that's when I got the call from him. So it was kind of a know somebody thing, if you will, but it worked out. So that was in the start of the NXL in 2015.
Got it. So what was it that made you want to become a ref?
I think that for a long time, referees and players, there was always such a bad back and forth between them, right? And I always felt like referees, as a player, I never felt like referees would ever listen, right? And or they would just turn their back on you, or it just seemed like they were always against you, right? Or you didn't know if they were on your side or not. You know, you never. There was always like this weird, like, oh, seems like you're my friend, but you're kind of like screwing me. You know, like what's going on here? So I always wanted to feel like, okay, there needs to be an open line of communication at some level, right? It doesn't need to be, obviously, not every referee should be talking to players, but I think there should be a better understanding at what went on in the point, and let's explain it, and not just here's what happened. You know, no ifs, ands, or buts. Let's go to the next point, you know, because I think it was like that for a long time. And I think in some areas it still is, you know, and to some degree it has to be like that. But that was the main reason. I was like, man, I just want to be like, I want to make the game better, you know, or at least like a better experience for the player. Right. Because it just always seemed like you never really knew, like, man, is it our day or not? You know, and I'm sure players still feel like that today. You know, I'm sure there's still players out there that feel like, man, we're just getting screwed today by the refs, you know. But that was my intention going into it, was come to it from a player's perspective, but still keep the game true. You know what I mean? Still keep those rules legit, if you will. You know what I mean? And I think we've come a long way in the way that the game is reffed in the last 10 years or 5 years, whatever it's been, for the better, I think, you know. And the format changes, and but there's still the same things. There's still the same issues that happen. So, and I think we've gotten better, but I don't know. What would you say? Like, what's your going into a tournament or going into a day, like, is that one thing that's on your mind? Like, are we worrying about the referees, or what crew you're going to get, or what field you're on? Because I feel like there's a lot of that. It's like, man, this field over here was pretty bad, but these guys were okay, you know. And I just want consistency is the main thing that we got to aim for.
I mean, as the Titans, so the Titans play in a lot of the local leagues, and then we do a little bit of traveling. Like, we'll play the NXL, we'll play Bunkerfest, and so there are a few refs that have seen us at a lot of events. Like Mikey, for example, he was one of the refs on the giant field at Bunkerfest. Like last year, I think he refed us for like our first 4 events in a row or something like that, and so we just always saw him. There are a few refs that like we kind of get to know over the course of events, and they get to know us. I wouldn't say we necessarily like worry about refs in terms of like who that specific person is.
I didn't mean that. I just mean like, do you in general, are you like, man, I wonder if these refs are going to screw us today, even if it's just, you know, a random set of guys that you've never seen before? I'm sure they're right.
I mean, we understand, like, with how many tournaments that we've all played, we understand that, you know, sometimes you just have a lot of calls that go your way. Sometimes the ref is just absolutely on it, and you're going to get it called on a lot more things. Like, we understand that there's definitely like good luck and bad luck days. But in terms of like worrying about if a ref is like out to get us or anything like that, I don't think we're ever in that position. Like, we'll definitely notice if like we're watching a field, if, you know, which refs are tending to throw more flags, you know, compared to a different field or maybe a side of the field, things like that. But I don't think that for at least for me personally, like, we're not too worried about, oh, this, you know, we're gonna go into the event expecting to have like inherent disadvantage because of whoever it is that's reffing.
Yeah. And I guess I asked that because sometimes when I go to like local leagues or regional tournaments, I get a lot of that. Like guys will come up to me and be like, "Hey, that ref in the corner, he screwed us before. He doesn't like us." And I'm like, "Guys, I promise, he does not care if you win or not." Like, and sometimes there's a relationship there, right? From maybe they played on a team before, and we try to eliminate that if we can. But yeah, it just seems like randomly at Bunkerfest, it seems like there was a lot of that. Players come up to me like, "That ref over there has it out for us for sure," and I was like, "Man, I really don't think so."
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there is a little bit of that sentiment that players do think that they got treated more harshly than they should have, and I would say that there's also a lot of players out there that don't fully understand the rules. I would say like they haven't read the full rule book of like the NXL rule book, for example. Like the big thing being that like, hey, it's the player's responsibility to know when they're hit. Like that's the biggest thing. And I think if that single thing was more understood by players in general, then that would eliminate a ton of issues and that kind of bad blood that players might feel towards reffing crews, because ultimately, like, if you get shot, doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter if you felt it or not, doesn't matter if it's obvious or not, like, it's your responsibility to get out, or the way the rules are written, you're getting a flag.
Yeah, the obvious hit thing gets brought up a lot, and I think that's because that's the way it used to read in the rules, but that's just not a thing anymore. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of players just maybe are unaware of some rule changes or how the rules enforced. Maybe it's just a an enforcement thing and how the procedure thing, if you will, like But I get it a lot. I get it a lot in D4 and D5 stuff where they're just like, "Oh, we didn't know that," And it's like, "Oh, okay, well here it is," But sometimes it's like a guy maybe who's been playing for a while and the rule used to be this, and now he interprets it differently, or now it is interpreted differently. So,
yeah, and I think that there can be better communication about those rule changes. Like there was a rule change for this season involving like pod runners and extra people on the field, which like I personally I attended the NXL ref training back at the beginning of February or end of January, whenever it was that you came down to X Factor.
Yeah, and it wasn't it.
And not only was it not in there, but if I wasn't a member of the Facebook group with everybody that's been to NXL trainings and is NXL certified, I would not have known of that change at all.
Right.
So in general, I think stuff like that can be better communicated.
I would bet that most of the players that played didn't know.
Yeah, and it's like a minor change as far as like you're not going to see it affect the game that often. But
right. There's a barrel bag change too, like that thing's kind of, there's a couple of just random things, but yeah.
And
I think procedurally we haven't really changed too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, real quick, just looking at people in the chat right now, from Chris Harrison says, "What up, Andrew?" Cooper says, "Hi, you do a hell of a job."
Chris, yeah.
And then Aussie Boy is asking, he's curious if there was any of that kind of bad sentiment at USXBL. I think we'll talk about USXBL here in a little bit. So for those that are listening that maybe they have never reffed a tournament before, could you give a brief summary about like what the job title is for a tournament referee?
Yeah. First of all, shout out to Cooper. He is the man, by the way. But yeah, I mean, reffing, you said like USXBL and stuff like that?
Just
Like
any tournament really. Like what is it? Like what is the job? Describe to us what the job involves.
So usually, you got to be there, an hour and ahead of time. As far as just the procedure and how the day goes, you'll get a lunch and you're gonna be reffing for a long time. Usually breaks are in between the matches or 5 to 10 minutes. That's just kind of how the day goes, right? That's your schedule. But you're expected to be on time, look professional, handle yourself professionally. A lot of times we get players that get a little bit heated, say some crazy stuff, but you always got to act professional. That's one of the main things. And then really, you got to have a good knowledge of the rules and then apply those rules, right? There's not a whole lot that I have to teach a guy in a lot of these leagues that I'm reffing. I have a pretty good crew on most of them. I'm super lucky. And then I've gotten like guys that have reffed those divisions or regionals for a long time. So they pretty much know what to do, but you get your position and you've done the clinic, you learn your rotation, you learn the names of the guys around you, and you try to work together in those pods, if you will. And you go from there. But really it's always a long day. It's always a grind. Staying hydrated is one of your biggest jobs, and staying fresh. So being honest with your head referee and being honest with the people around you and being like, hey man, I'm not in it right now. I'm gonna need a little bit of help. And being good at communication. So that's pretty much it. A level head, good communicator, good eyes, obviously, and a good knowledge of the rules really will get you through it, and a person that's humble, right? Like if you make a mistake, admit it, because no one wants to be lied to about the mistake you made. And it's okay to make a mistake because it's going to happen, right? Like paintball players are going to mess up, referees are going to mess up, coaches are going to mess up, scoreboard might mess up. There's going to be some stuff that goes wrong, but if we can all be honest with each other and communicate, usually everything can keep it moving,
For sure. So for those referees that are like very good referees or those that like get noticed for being very good at their job, what are the things that those referees do to like stand out?
Like towards a head referee?
Either towards you or maybe just like what is it that the refs that are like noticeably good at their job compared to like just the average ref?
Like what? Okay. I would consider a good ref someone that's honest. Like I said, good knowledge of the rules, but isn't like super police-ish, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some times where you got to make a judgment call or a discretionary call. There is some things in paintball that are just like that. Luckily, and not a lot of the rules that are super, super important, like major minor penalties are like that. Those are pretty black and white. But, when you got a little kid pod runner that walks in the field and you bang him with a minor in a D5 tournament, it's like, all right, well, let's have some discretion here. Let's have a little bit of customer service too, because these guys are paying a good amount of money to play paintball, and we all love paintball, so let's just keep it going, But I think those guys that are honest, a good knowledge of the rules, someone that can explain their call very clearly is super important to me. So that a lot of times I'm reffing, I didn't see what happened in the other corner, because I'm not constantly scanning the field when I'm in these situations sometimes. So someone that can explain the call really well or diffuse the situation so that the call can get explained is a good weapon for me, or a good person to have around for sure.
For sure. We noticed, I was sitting with Johnny Lukau, just watching I think it was the premier finals on Saturday at Bunkerfest. We noticed there were two refs on the Dorito side that just like they were catching everything. Like you could not get a single thing past them, which kind of speaking of, just because I just thought of it, I was talking to Jeremy Zimmerman over the weekend because he was coaching at USXBL for the jackpot team in D4 on Sunday. And I just mentioned to him because he was the first pro coach that I had ever had. I was like, hey, he's asked me how the podcast is doing. I said I was going to get you on this week. And he said, this man right here has single-handedly thrown more penalties on me, catching me cheating than any other ref combined that he has ever played for, to the point where he admitted that if he saw you on the field, he was going the other way or he was just not cheating because he knew like you were not going to get any, you were not going to let one slip by on him.
I think I know who that is. I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah, former AC Dallas, AC Diesel player, not doing too much.
Okay.
Nowadays, I think he's kind of been removed for a little bit, but he's still coaching. He's still around in paintball. So
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Said he was coaching Bunkerfest or USXBL?
He was coaching USXBL. He was coaching Jackpot.
The Jackpot guys. You said, yeah. Where did those guys come from?
They came out of nowhere. They're new this year. I know it's like a father. I think his name is Matthew Blanco, and his son. He's like trying to help his son kind of really get into the game. So he's trying to, bring in other people to help his son. Not only play together but learn.
Yeah, it seems like just over the last couple of years, I haven't really seen a bunch of new teams, but that seemed like one of them. I was like, oh, that's a New Jersey out there. So
yeah, they're new this year for sure.
Like they have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I know this question wasn't in the script that I sent you, but I kind of sentiment that I hear a lot for refs is that, or I don't know if it's a sentiment or more so like a misconception, but I hear from players that they believe that in order to be a good ref, you need to have played at a high level. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no. I think that there's been situations where it's been really hard to get the player out of a referee. Does that make sense? Sometimes they're just a little bit too lenient, if you will. They want to be too fair to the player side. But I think you need a knowledge. Like I would say most high-end players could ref on most divisions in the NXL with if they have a good knowledge of the rules and stuff like that, because I think they know procedurally how we do things. But I've got guys that have never played in a tournament before that are super good refs, and they're consistent. They know the rules very, very well. They apply them perfectly, and they can explain everything very, very well. So that's the main thing you need is an understanding of the game for sure, but the procedure behind that too. Like I think that's what sets those guys apart that are able to do it without the knowledge or the high end of they played at D2 or D3 or semi-pro or pro. Those guys that are and they're just more intelligent, really, is what it comes down to. They're just smarter, really. Some of the other guys will get by. A D3 or D4 guy comes in, and they just got the reps. They just see a lot of paintball, so they get it too. But I don't know. I've also had ref with pro guys before in the past that I would never want them on my field again reffing. But and maybe it's just because they didn't really care, but I would say it's not a requirement. It helps.
Yep. Cool. So, all of that being said, what was it that eventually earned you this position of being the head ref on the pro field at the NXL?
I think it was just being consistent. I don't think, I think, and maybe right place at right time. There was a big, I would say, 2 or 3 years, there was a big, not an exodus, but we were losing guys, and guys were coming in around the COVID time. 2019 to 2021 was a big change for us. That's not when I got the job, but I would say that's when I got like my other head reffing jobs. Does that make sense? When I started doing a little bit more of that. But really, I think I just got the job because I was consistent. A guy that was like sort of my mentor in paintball and, a teammate of mine was the head referee on the field for a while. So it kind of got passed down, if you will. But that's, I think just being consistent and being honest when I made a mistake was what got me the job. I made every event too. I was lucky. I had a job where I could just take that time off, and I was at every event. I've never missed an event since 2015 in the NXL. So consistency, that's it. I think
that's a big part of it for sure. So let's see. So you are the head ref of the NXL, and then you mentioned that it kind of helped you get the head reffing positions in other leagues as well. So tell me, what are all of the leagues that you're either a ref or the head ref for?
Yeah, I think that's what got me those jobs. But I do USXBL. I do some of the XTPLs at Paintball Fit. I do MSXL, a couple of those. Those ones I kind of like to just ref and not head ref if I can, and pass that off to someone else if I can. Bunkerfest is here. NXL. What am I missing?
You do the ICPLs at all?
ICPL, yeah. Sorry, ICPL. That's it. And that's pretty much a full schedule this summer for me. So there's a weekend, or there's months where I'm gone, 3 weeks out of the month. So, but it's fun. Some of those, I wish we were going to some cooler places in some of these leagues, but none of them are terrible. Texas has always been good to me, so I like it. I like going there. I'm not really going to California this year at any time. Maybe a Dub C. Haven't really decided. And the schedule's kind of messed up, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know a lot of the Bunkerfest events happen the same weekend as a lot of the WC events this year.
Right. 100%. I think all of them are.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah.
I know the first two were for sure.
Yeah, I think they all match up. Maybe one later season. But yeah, MSXL is the other one that that's out there that's kind of fun for me because I don't have to head ref it, so that's good. I can just ref and not have to deal with some of the things that head refs have to, so that's good.
Surprised that the TSXL Tri-State X-Ball League isn't on that listing, is like you're kind of more up in that area.
They're on the calendar. I haven't committed to anything. And really, I think there's a couple of those weekends where like I want to do some fishing and some vacation stuff. So I want to do that. But we'll see. You never know. I got approached by MVPS recently, but their event is the same weekend of MSXL, and I want to go to Nashville. So,
Gotcha.
You guys ever play any of those MSXLs?
No, we've pretty much just stayed local. There's plenty of paintball to be played in Texas for sure. So we do
you got set up here for sure.
Yeah, we got USXBL, we got Bunkerfest, we got the NXL Texas event. We usually there's like two different regions of the USXBL. There's usually the main series, South Central region, and then there's usually a Gulf Coast series, which is all Houston. We usually try to do one event in Houston.
Oh yeah. Is that the Jackson brothers that run that one?
No, it's always been at Houston Zone for the last couple of years, which is run by a guy named Jason Tinsley. And I don't know if they're going back there this year or not, just because it seems like USXBL is kind of consolidating quite a bit this year. But we'll see. There's definitely plenty of events to be played here.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, as the head ref for all of these different leagues, I know you're flying out all the time to participate in tournaments, clinics, including clinic that you did here earlier this year at X Factor. So, is this job of being a head referee or just a paintball referee? Would you consider it like a more like proper part-time job or full-time job? And what is it that you do outside of paintball for your regular job that allows you to be able to take all this time off to go ref?
So for me, it's always been a part-time job or an added income, if you will. I've always been in restaurants or bartending, something like that. Most recently, I was a butcher for a little thing that I was doing out in Colorado. But a lot of people use it it's their part-time gig. There's a few guys and gals that do it as a full-time job, I guess you could call it that. But they're doing 3 or 4 weekends a month in the summertime, plus clinics, plus that. It gets to be a lot. So it's good to take a break, I think. You get a little burnout, but most of my guys in the pro field don't go to a lot of regional events and stuff because they take so much time off from their regular job to do NXLs. So, but there are a few of us that travel quite a bit. Right now, I'm just doing paintball.
Gotcha. So, I mean, for anyone who has never gone through, like, been a ref at a local event or never done NXL or anything like that, would you recommend to them that they take one of the NXL clinics, or even just, even without formal training, just ref a local event to get like the feel for what the job's like?
I think so. And even if you're not really interested in necessarily reffing NXLs, like you said, I think it's good just to get a knowledge of the rules and to learn the game better. A couple of the clinics that I've done recently, it's a lot of new teams, new D5 players that want to know the rules or want to just understand the game better and go on and ref, an NXL or something like that in their region. That's really what those clinics are made for. But I highly, highly recommend someone take one of those. And sometimes there's just, the rule book is very hard to read sometimes, right? Some of those rules are super wordy, and it's hard to understand the procedure behind them when they're so wordy, right? And if you don't watch a lot of paintball, or if you don't, play a lot of paintball, it can be a nightmare. So I think it's a good way just to learn the rules. I've had a couple of guys recently just reach out and be like, hey, can I just come take a clinic or do a clinic with you? So that if I do one day want to jump on, at a USXBL, an NXL, or one of the NXL affiliates or something, they can do that. So I think it's super valuable for teams. Like when I did the one out there in San Antonio, it was mostly 2 teams that were like, yeah, these guys want to go out and do the Round Rock event for the NXL, or do one of the affiliates like USXBL or something like that. But it's I think there's tons of value. It doesn't cost much, so.
Yep. I mean, for us down in Texas, when I signed up for the clinic, honestly, I just wanted to get that knowledge just so I could partly become a better player and just understand like what it is like the refs are looking for. Not to say that I'm trying to learn how to cheat, but just understanding, hey, this is exactly like the refs kind of thought process as they're assessing, maybe assessing a penalty, or like getting like what their thought process is, like if a play happens and they need to like kind of break down what the outcomes are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's anyone that's playing any sport should definitely know how the reffing procedure is going to go down, right? Like, highly valuable, I think.
For sure. And another question, I know it's not on the script here, but I know sometimes the problems that plague paintball tournaments in terms of like player like disposition against the refs often come down to just the lack of like just sheer number of refs that are available. And I'm sure you have a better kind of familiarity with the like how big or how small the reffing pool actually is. Would you say, like, do you think there are actually enough refs out there? Like if the players are complaining and they just say, oh, why didn't this tournament series just, shell out for another ref or two to have on the field? Or do you think like there's actually kind of like shallow ref pool at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's two problems. One, it's expensive. Like paying refs is not cheap, and I think most leagues would want to pay like per ref. They would want to pay more, right? If they could afford it. And there is just a smaller pool of guys that want to do it, and sometimes there's a bigger pool of guys that want to do it that shouldn't be doing it. But yeah, it's a small, and that's I went to a referee like big convention out in Colorado last year with Tom and Jason, and it's in every sport there's a lack of referees, and there's definitely more leaving that are coming in at that everywhere. So and the average age is going up in referees too. So it's tough to find people that are into the sport that they play or whatever to go and do that referee job. It's not luxurious. Paintball, it's tough. You get shot. You're out there in 100-degree weather in Texas, in Nashville and Florida, in California. Those are hot areas when paintball is being played in June and July. So it's not luxurious. It's definitely I don't think anyone really does it for the money. I think you really got to have a love for the sport, and unfortunately, some of those guys that love the sport just shouldn't be reffing. As much as I hate to say it, but the pool right now is very, very small.
So just to kind of give everybody else context for how small the ref pool is or how big it really needs to be. Now, I know the answer to this question, but as far as being able to adequately ref a tournament, how many refs would you say you need on the field at a time? And I know for the pro field, how many refs do you have on the pro field at NXL events?
I think it depends on the division and the staff that you have as far as like the quality of the refs that you have. But I think you can get it done with 8 guys, like at a higher division, I think you can get it done with 8, that would be the lightest I would ever go. However, on the pro field, we do 12 on field plus me in the tower. So I'm above everybody. And then there's 12 on the field.
Yeah, I know that paintball is like probably the only sport that I know of that you need as many refs as you do players on the field. Like the only sport that doesn't apply to are those like combat sports, one-on-one sports where you have like a ref and 2 guys, or tennis or whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, and we zone ref, right? So sometimes you're a little bit heavy, but typically you're in a good spot with 12, and that's the number I usually like to have. On the pro field, I don't go under that. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. We've had 14 sometimes. I know I was talking to a guy that was over reffing Bunkerfest. He's from Germany, and he did the Millenniums. and they ref man on man, so it was 10 guys, I think, that he was saying. But then you literally follow the player, like you don't pass the guy off. So there's a lot of bird dog in that situation, but that's just how they did it.
Yeah, we got to talk with that guy because he was reffing on the giant field, and he couldn't believe how hot it was in Texas that day. It was the rain. He was complaining, and I was like, look, you don't like the weather. We got a saying here in Texas, which is if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. And his response, he was just like, shit. he didn't like it.
Yeah. I think he left a little bit of a sunburn for sure.
For sure. So this next question is brought to us by FUAthletics. Go to thefuathletics.com and use code inthepits25 for 25% off of your order. So out of everything that you've done in your paintball career so far, be it as a ref, be it as a player, what has been your single favorite moment in your career so far? And even if you want to separate that into one as a player, one as a ref, you can do that too.
Sure. I think reffing in Brazil was pretty cool. Just anytime you get to go to a different country, they just have such a different outlook on paintball. They love it so much more, I feel like, for some reason. But yeah, that was pretty cool. And I got to do it with my girl too, so that's pretty great. Playing wise, I got to win a couple tournaments with my buddies, and that was always great. I'm hoping I got some good memories still coming, so in the near future with some of these games we're going to play. So I'm looking forward to this year, to be honest. And traveling's always been like one of the better parts. Like last year we went to Universal before Cup, and that was great, just to go and hang out. Because a lot of times we only get the time from when we leave the field to when we go to bed to really hang out with each other. And you can get it in right there, but you're trying to get to sleep too. So you only get to spend a few hours with those guys. It's nice to hang out with your boys for a couple extra days or something like that. That's the main goal with the extra time that we got. So those are always good. It's just like a team in paintball. You know what I mean? Like, you want to go hang out with your buddies and do your stuff and do a good job and walk away with a paycheck and feel satisfied and hopefully put out a good product for the promoter.
For sure. And I think that you also might be in a little bit of a special situation as well, because you're in a relationship with someone who is also a NXL ref, which I'm sure has its benefits, just because if you're traveling to go ref in NXL and she's traveling as well.
Yeah, and that's also like one of the best things that's ever come out of paintball for me is I've gotten my significant other from it. So, but yeah, it's awesome traveling with her, reffing with her. Everything we get to do together is super special. So she's in China right now, and I miss her, but she's taking care of some business. But it is super special, and it's always nice to have a travel buddy. I did it for a while, like by myself, like going from airport to airport by myself. It gets a little lonely, but it's good. If you like to travel, it's pretty awesome. I'll say that for sure. Pretty lucky.
Sure.
If you don't like to travel, don't recommend it. If you don't like hotels, if you don't like renting cars, if you don't like getting into the airplane, if you can't sleep on an airplane, I don't recommend it. It's not for you. I'll just say that right flat out,
Especially with how often you're traveling, let alone how often you're in Texas. I mean, you're about to come back here in 3 weeks for the next NXL event too.
Yeah, I'll be back in 3 weeks, and then I'll be in Nashville right after that for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then the 2 weeks after that, I'll be in Texas for the following. So a lot of Texas this year. Texas is good though, man. I like Texas.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Texas, you just reffed Bunkerfest, the first event of the year, the Alamo Blitz, and then you also just reffed the USXBL Planet Eclipse Open, which is the first event of the year. So how was it? How was the experience just in general? How was it reffing those events?
Bunkerfest was long. They just had some unforeseen stuff that happened. Injuries and things like that happened, scoreboard issues, all that kind of stuff. But they were long days. But I think the paintball was good, and I think the product was good. I haven't watched any of the webcasts, but I think that was pretty cool that they did the 3 webcasts. It seems like there was a lot of paintball being played, and yeah, it was interesting. It was good though. It was good for sure. Different but good. I think they'll learn from whatever mistakes or whatever things they weren't prepared for, hopefully, and it'll just get better. USXBL, I think they've had a good product for a while, but they're locking down that one really honed in on one field, and I highly recommend getting out to those events because that's good. That's good competition. It's a good product. Yeah, and I think there's a couple in Dallas, right, coming up. So the next 2 are in Dallas, one next back or something like that. So yeah, we'll be around. Those are good. Good paintball at both. I think there was some cool prizes handed out too. So I know the kids, they got some sweet belts at Bunkerfest. Cooper was showing me his, and that thing was cool. I think they did some cool stuff, for sure, at both of them. And I think both ran well. I like that it's one field at USXBL because I think you get a good set of refs. So.
Yeah, doing that on one field, kind of downsizing to one field seems like you know exactly what you're going to get the whole day. That's positive change there, I think, as far as the player experience. Yeah, one person in the chat, Lock Ree, says USXBL just only on one field seemed better than it being on 2 fields in the previous years. And speaking of those kids that got the belts, I'm actually going to have them. That entire line is going to get to come on the podcast here in 2 weeks, and really looking forward to that one. That's going to be a fun one.
That was the purple team, right?
Yeah, TKO.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, man. Yeah, they got shout out to those parents that are doing that for those kids, because just remember, my mom was not about paintball, dude. I had to do some sneaking around to play, and I think that's super awesome that those guys got the support that they're getting. So good for them.
For sure.
For sure. Important.
So, kind of speaking of all the leagues that you have reffed, you've reffed everything all over the U.S., some WC. I'm sure you've reffed other local events in the past, as well as, the main national events in the NXL and the ICPL. Are there obvious differences between the different leagues in terms of like either how smoothly they're run or the quality of competition? And then out of all of those leagues, which ones out of all of the either leagues or maybe even individual events that you've been involved in, which have been your favorite to participate in?
I would say there's a difference, but it's really only because other leagues have been running longer than some of them, some other ones. You know what I'm saying? I think that's once you work out some of the kinks and you know what you got to get in to have a better product. I think leagues are starting to figure that out. There's some holes for sure in different regions, but I think for the most part, things are run pretty well. I will say that for me, the NXL and the stuff that I do in Texas is the best for me. I get treated the best at those, and the paintball is just usually, good or very good. Texas has a lot of good paintball, and even the bad paintball that you see, or not bad paintball, even the newer paintball that you see, the newer teams you see, they get good fast. It's crazy. So, I'd say Texas probably. I like reffing in Texas. California has some really good paintball too, though. It's just that they kind of have their refs in some of those local leagues that are good. So, they don't really need to reach out too much and travel people in. So, but yeah, I think USXBL, NXL, in the last year were probably my favorite. Bunkerfest, I've only done one, so like I don't really know. They have some plans to go to some really fun places, and that's what I'm really looking forward to. And it seems like they're a pretty big league right now. So, but in most of the leagues that I've, XTPL, same thing. I get treated pretty good there. MSXL, I get treated well there too. So it's not. I would just say if I had to pick some, those would be the three. But.
Gotcha. And I mean, Texas appreciates having you down especially as often as you are. And here in Texas, at least amongst the players and teams, we always say to ourselves that it's obvious that what's happening in Texas, like all of the divisional teams in Texas are just clearly better than the rest of the U.S. And usually that's like that. I mean, you look at the finishes at the NXL. I mean, the facts are right there, because usually, you see Texas teams always taking these wins at the NXL, no matter what division it's in. I mean, even this last,
can't deny that, I guess. Yeah.
Even this last NXL, the Sunshine Major, I think there was only really Texas teams in Pro, Semi-Pro, and D2. I didn't remember really any D3 or 4 or 5 teams, which is a little unusual. But like this past NXL, look at the finals in Division 2. We had Shut Up or Trying. In the finals in Semi-Pro, Paintball Fit ended up winning. And then, Pro, of course, Dynasty is on an absolute tear right now. But you've got 4 pro teams out of Texas right now. You've got X Factor, Houston Heat, AC Diesel, and then Austin Notorious. So you got 20% of the pro league is out of Texas right now. So would you say that, like, at least from your point of view, I know you're on the field reffing, so you get to see it firsthand a lot of the time, especially, when these divisional teams get their spot on the finals field. Would you say there is like a clear level, like difference in the level of play among the different regions?
Yes. I would say when you're looking at guys that are playing even in the North, and this is even back in the day, I think, but you look at guys that are playing D3 in the Northeast and guys that are playing D3 in Texas, there's a difference. Same thing in the Midwest. I would say maybe in Florida and California and Texas, we're maybe a little bit on the same level at one point. And maybe they still are, but I think there's more competitive teams in Texas. There's a lot of players in Florida and a lot of players in California. And California is still not, still right there. I would say I would like to see California teams and Texas teams, that there be a regional event where they were playing against each other more. Because I think you guys are, like, Texas is really, really good. And I think that, they're up there. They're probably, it's them or California, I would say, right? Like, as far as the regions go. But you guys don't play each other enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, California teams don't travel, I feel like, as much as you guys do or Texas teams do to the NXL. Does that make sense?
Totally fair.
I think you guys are out there. Florida teams travel pretty well. And then you got your Midwest teams, or you got guys on Midwest teams, on Texas teams, or something like that. But I think that you guys travel. You guys travel well, and I would love to see somehow, in the NXL is usually the one, but for some reason those California teams I don't think are as prevalent going to those events. But I think that if they could get a California Texas showdown of some sort, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we'd be down for sure.
I bet that's that. I would say those are the two. And Florida's, I mean, I just don't spend a lot of time in Florida other than when I'm in the NXL to really know, but they got some squads out there too, for sure.
For sure. I think that we'd be down if we could set something up. Like if the NXL if the NXL ever decided to go back to Phoenix, that'd be a pretty good middle ground. Or
I think Vegas. I think
Vegas exactly, right?
Yeah. I think Vegas is the answer, but and hopefully, I think that's on the plans. I think everyone loved going to Vegas. Good weather. You can always get a good hotel. You can always get some good entertainment for sure. And it's just fun. So tons of national monuments around and stuff too. Like really cool stuff you can travel to if you're going to take a day or two before or after. So I think Vegas needs to be a destination for sure.
I think Tom Call has said publicly on the Spick and Span show that the plan is for 2024 to go back to Vegas when they unveil the whole betting thing with partnership with Paintball.
That would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense. I'm supposed to talk to him tomorrow. Maybe I'll ask him.
That would be cool to see. I know I've never gotten to play in NXL in Vegas. I know for several of my teammates, they played the last Vegas event 3 days before the whole country shut down. So a lot of us are looking forward to go back.
Yeah, it was. If they do it at the same park, it's just always so perfect. It's close to a hotel. It's great. It's in a decent park too. It's on definitely where we shouldn't be, but we are. But I'm not sure if we're allowed back there. I can't remember how that went down. I know they had a good contract with that municipality or whatever was down there. However, they worked that out. But that was Vegas is great. We definitely got to go back for sure. I'd like to see a stadium again. One of my first tournaments that I ever reffed that was huge. I was like 16 years old, and it was a Skyball tournament in Toronto. They played it inside the baseball stadium. That was so cool, man. You had 4 or 5 fields. They had a hotel where you could stay and watch down on the games and stuff. They played at night. It was cool. But they played on carpet. That's the only thing they messed up. They laid literally carpet down. But I think a stadium, if we get into a stadium again, I think that'd be kind of sweet.
That would be cool. I mean, hell, if they ever decided to do it in Round Rock, there's we're in Old Settlers Park, which I believe is basically right next door to there's a AAA baseball team right there. The Round Rock Express, their stadium is right there. So if we ever worked it out, we could put the pro field there. Yeah,
they had some events at the Texas Motor Speedway. I thought that was pretty cool, even though we weren't in in the arena or anything, but we were, it seemed like you were going to something big, you know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty cool always over there.
Yeah, it would be cool to get something in the stadiums rather than hey, you're going to go here and then you're going to take a right and you're going to go around the corner and that's where the event is.
Yeah. That's tough, man. That's tough to get those things. But I know they're constantly working on it. That is Tom's thing, man. That is his thing for sure.
Well, I can't wait to see what else we get back into over the next couple of years. It seems like growth is being achieved on some level, so can't wait to see what else is there.
I think all the leagues will do something different, or season 1-on-1 stuff and 3-on-3, 2-on-2. That'd be kind of cool. So I'm sure leagues will throw in some fun stuff. The guys over at Fit are always doing something weird. I'm sure Bunkerfest will try to do something cool to switch it up. So NXL's got those youth games and all that other stuff going on. So a lot of good stuff going on, I think, in paintball.
For sure. So real quick, everybody that's watching us live, we're about to get to the end of our show. So if you have something that you want to ask Andrew, get your question in the chat. We will get to those here in just a second. So Andrew, this question is something that I ask everybody that comes on the show. And it's brought to us by Get Dat Shot. So message GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram for media coverage at Bunkerfest or NXL. He's going to be at the full series for both, especially if you're going to be playing in Round Rock. You need media coverage.
hit up Get That Shot. So, Andrew, are there any teams, players, brands, projects that have caught your attention lately? So, who in paintball do you think deserves more recognition for what they're doing?
Man, I feel like with media now, there's a lot of people getting recognition all of a sudden. I think there was some awards given out a couple of years ago to kind of like spark this movement, but I'd say, who's kind of there's a lot of unsung heroes and behind the scenes guy, and I'll just say it because I'm a ref, but the scorekeepers, like, not that they have a crazy tough job, but they have to deal with like a lot of shit that you don't think about, and my guy Roderick on the pro field is the man. So I'm just gonna shout out to that dude because he does a ton of stuff, and he had to leave to go to a wedding on Sunday, and I got to see some of the shit that I don't realize that he does, and I think those scorekeepers and some of the behind the scenes guys that they don't get anything, like even the people that are working, security and stuff like that really, and the setup guys, the guys that put in all those polls at those NXL events and stuff like that, like they don't get any recognition ever. So shout out to those dudes because they make it happen. They're there weeks before it happens, weeks after it happens, and at the regional events, you got guys setting up. Those things don't just those banners and everything that make it look cool don't just pop up. Those bunkers just don't set themselves. So those guys, I would say, are a shout out that I'd like to give to.
All right. So there we have it. Looking at the chat right here before we close up. So yeah, getting back to that question that we had earlier from Aussie Boy, just asking about the USXBL, if you felt like there was any bad blood between any players or teams and the refs.
No, I hope not. I don't think so. I ain't mad at anybody. And we even had like some crazy situations go down that I think were just handled and it was over with, right? Like, just was what it was. So.
All right. Another question from, let's see. Where's this question? There it is. So from Lockry, they say they saw a ref tackle a player while pulling him at USXBL. Didn't take him to the ground, but it seemed excessive. What are your thoughts?
Damn, I didn't see that. I wish it was brought up to me. Yeah, we try not to do that. We try not really even to touch players, and it used to be the thing where you'd have to pull people off just to get them to stop shooting their gun back in the day. That's definitely not our aim right now. So, yeah, physical contact, we don't really want that going on too much. People get weird about it. And sometimes you might fall or trip or something like that, and then you got a mess on your hands. So, yeah, not what we're trying to do for sure. I didn't see anyone tackle anybody, though. I don't know.
Got it. Let's see. One question that I know that I personally asked you when you were doing the ref clinic. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. So sometimes there are things that happen on the pro field that, maybe the way that it's officiated or the way that everything plays out wouldn't be how it's typically played out at any other event or in any other division. Big examples being when standoffs happen on the pro field, which a lot of people seem to be fans of, like especially when you have the Go Sports commentators like Matty Marshall, like Rich Telford, they're all saying like, hey, we need more of that on the field. Does that, when those things happen, does it affect your job at all? Like either in that event or in future events?
100%. It all trickles down to where I'm going to be, that standoff thing, there was a standoff at USXBL, and you always it's my job to definitely give my 2 cents in what I would like to do. There is a customer service thing that has to happen for the promoter, And I think the way things get portrayed in the media, right? Like that, let's just talk about the standoff real quick for the NXL.
Mm-hmm.
Like that happened, it got handled, and behind the scenes, it was much different than people probably think, right? Like those two guys weren't even mad at each other after that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was such a bogus, like random thing. And we should have, it should have been handled different, because I don't think it was because of like it for what happened to the player really, but and them being upset about getting shot a lot or anything like that, but it trickled down to the other events, right? Now guys in D3 are doing it, and it's not good, right? Because they think it happened because it was like, oh, he overshot me or whatever, when really it was just two guys that were just doing some dumb shit, right? But it does affect decision making, like sometimes things are out of your hands. I'll say that in that part. But I think as far as like, I think anyone on the pro field that was watching that game that played on the pro field knows that was not okay, right? But I think we should have. Looking back on it, I think we should have taking a little bit more time to think about what was going to happen outside of the pro field and how it trickled down to D3, how it was going to affect other fields and other leagues going forward. And I think that I know that the USXBL made it a huge point to not allow that, right? Like that was just a suspension right away. So, yeah, I mean, it came up this weekend, and I think we handled it correctly. But there was still some reckless stuff that happened. So, yeah, at some point you have to set a precedent, I think, and you just got to read the situation. And that can be tough sometimes. So, I guess I'll leave it at that. But the standoff stuff and the overshooting and all that stuff, that some promoters want because they want the views, they want the likes, and that's what maybe is portrayed as what's getting them more eyes on paintball. That's just the decision that they make, and it's gonna have consequences eventually, I think.
Right. Yeah, I as a player have noticed like things like that, the overshooting and even standoffs. Like I don't remember there being a single standoff like that for a couple of years before, as far as like the local tournaments that I have played, and even the national, like the NXL events. I don't remember there being a single standoff before that happened in, I think it was Chicago that happened, or was it Philly?
I can't remember, but I'm sure it had happened on divisional fields, and maybe just it wasn't covered and no one heard about it. That thing was, the number one thing that Go Sports wanted to pump that evening. So everyone saw it. I would bet if you play paintball or if you follow paintball on any social media thing, you probably saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the issue was, that some dudes thought that was really awesome and they want to go do that too,
For sure. And the thing was, like, I think the Gulf Coast Series USXBL events that year were the same weekend as NXL events, or it was either the same weekend or the following weekend. I want to say it was the same weekend, but like that standoff happened on a Friday, or it either happened on a Friday or Saturday. The event was Sunday, and there was a standoff that day.
Right. So immediately it had an effect on things around it. Right. Like there was immediate consequences to that. I heard, there was some stuff that went down at ICPL, and I heard literally the next weekend players were trying it there. So the word spreads pretty quick when people start to do some weird shit. And, yeah, I mean, it's just going to take away from the game, I think, like the people that are proud of cheating, and we all know that happens in games. We're not going to sit here and deny that, right? Like the people that are proud of cheating, that's going to come back to bite them when everyone's cheating in every event, right? Like bragging about cheating is a weird thing to me. That is so taboo and so weird, but a lot of guys do it. But if you catch them, they don't want to admit to it, right? In the in the moment, but they want to brag about it later. It's just kind of crazy. I don't think that's like too big, but it's around.
Yep, for sure. So final thing kind of off the back of that before I let you go. So those things that affect the paintball scene nationally, like what are the things that you do to impact the scene nationally? Like, being the head pro ref, do you get any say in like new rule changes, or like ref like how refs do their job, like doctrine or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So there's always an open conversation. I think most people know that Jason Trozen is the one that is really working on that rule book, and he makes the amendments to them. But he doesn't do it by himself by any means. He's a highly intelligent person, and you can tell by the way that rule book's written that it's done by someone who is good with their words, right? But he's constantly thinking, even if it's about like, we have a lot of random stuff like the start box. How should the start box be built? Where should the buzzer be? And those kind of little things. He's talking about that all the time. Even if it's mid-season and it's like, hey, should we change this for next year? Should we change the procedure on this for next year? Should we really try to enforce this? Should we make this a point of like contention in some things, or what battle do you want to pick? Like for that time. And really, it's just over the last 5 years, I think it's just been honing the rules so that the procedure is perfect, right? And consistent, or at least written so that it can be done consistently. But there's so much that people want to give their input to, and unfortunately, like some of the decisions that are made, like there's no time to test things out, right? Like you kind of just go for it and see how people react, and you're never gonna make everyone happy. But I get to sit on some conversations that are had, and that's pretty cool, And I think that my opinions has usually been taken pretty seriously, so it's pretty cool. But I'll say that every decision they make, they poke holes in it, and they know they're not going to satisfy everybody. But you can't sit around and talk about stuff and not try it, right? Like you got to do something, And there's always a talk about layouts, and there's always a talk about locations, and there's always a talk about format and all that stuff. But really, if you don't try it, you'll never figure it out. So people get mad when they make a decision, but it's really they're trying to do it all for the good, not for the anyone to suffer. Like one side to be more to be more fair or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just to like really make it cool, make it fun, and make it a good experience for the player. I think is their main goal.
Got it.
And that for every promoter, right? Like everywhere.
Gotcha. So yeah, it's all good stuff. It's definitely a unique position that you hold, being like the guy to go to for reffing, not just on the national scene, but so many regional events as well. So it's cool to have gotten your perspective and your experience.
And there's definitely like a few of me. There's a few guys out there that do what I do too, or that could do what I do. And so, there's not just, I would say this, there's a team of dudes out there that really want to make this cool and make it, something that we can really make a full-time job, not a part-time job, and make legit. So we're working on that. Hopefully with the Major League Paintball stuff, some of that stuff happens, you know. I know that there's some opportunities that are looking good. So we're excited. We'll see.
Well, it'll be exciting to see how, you know, just the scene in general grows over the next couple of years. So,
For sure.
Andrew, this last question is brought to us by Compete, which is Jell Stewart's brand. Message him on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits for 10% off of your order of soft goods. So, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last shout outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
No, man, shout out to you. Looks like you're doing a cool thing out there. Yeah, shout out to all the X Factor guys that helped us with the USXBL stuff. Their crew is really good out there, so thank you for that. Bunkerfest guys, same thing. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys out at the round rock event and for the NXL. So if you're around and you see me, please say hi.
Yeah, we'll do. I know the Texas Titans will be playing D3, and I think we'll have a D5 line as well. So,
cool. Hell yeah.
You know, my goal
and
is
you're on the D. You're playing D. Sorry to cut you off. You're playing D3, right?
D3, yeah.
Cool.
So our goal is to hopefully, you know, get to say hi to you while we're playing on the finals field. So that's what we're going to be working for sure. All right. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow all of the different leagues that Andrew refs for. Follow the NXL, follow USXBL, follow Bunkerfest, follow ICPL, follow all those leagues on Instagram. Be sure to get the word out. And what other guests would y'all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button. The show goes live weekly here on youtube.com/@inthepitspaintballpodcast, and recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. Quick shout out to my partners and sponsors. We got FUAthletics, Get That Shot. One sponsor I have not mentioned yet is Paintball Kumite, which is Colt Roberts' training regimen that he offers. Just breaks the game down into like the basics, kind of separates all the core mechanics in an easy to learn format. So if you want to get in on a session, message at Paintball Kumite on Instagram, mention In the Pits for a free 1 hour session. I know Colt was actually on the reffing crew on Saturday for USXBL. And then Sunday he was coaching the Titans. So Colt's definitely about it, learning all aspects of the game. He was at the ref clinic at X Factor back in earlier this year. I think he was a big part of how it even came together at X Factor.
For sure. Shout out to Colt for that. And his wife, Des. Definitely.
Shout out to Des. Also, rest of the sponsors, Compete and Hustletown Paintball. We will all see you next week for episode 43, where we will have Ben Challenger, who's a player for Los Angeles Infamous. Used to be a player for AC Diesel for the last couple of years. Just made the jump, and we're going to get to talk to him, kind of get his thoughts on how the first event went and how this second event's going to go. So, y'all, we will see you next Wednesday. And just checking the chat one last time real quick. I see Garrett Gamboa, who's a player for the Dragoons, who they placed, I think, third place at USXBL on Sunday. He said that he says that it'd be a cool idea to have a Cali versus Texas tournament where, you know, all the Cali teams play each other in prelims, all the Texas teams play each other in prelims, and then just send the best team from each state out, in like the finals. That'd be interesting, but I feel like we would, like, even our worst team in Texas would beat most of those California teams. So I don't know if we want to do ourselves dirty like that, you know?
Oh boy. Little Texas Cali something, man, right? It'd be something cool.
For sure. And then Ozzy Boy says TKO D5 will be out there at NXL. See you there, Andrew. Chris Harrison also says see you there. Yep. All right, y'all. So we will see you next week. Andrew, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man.